Usually I have the unenvious task of following the meditation with prose, so today we're going to do it a little bit differently. As Claudia mentioned in her opening, we have a commitment in this ministry to experiencing the truth that where two or more are gathered. In my name, there I am. The I am resides in each of us and resides in all of us. There's only one I am. As Neil Donald Walsh said when I heard him speak on Conversations with God, no matter how many people are in the room, there's only one of us. There's only one of us. So we started 4 or 5 weeks ago with a series that we call Wisdom of the Congregation, where we call upon some of our brothers and sisters in the congregation to share some truth about what each of us has experienced. We had Layla, we had Esther, and we had Jackie share on how they use truth for healing. And then this was part of our ongoing series of reviewing Lessons in Truth by Dr. Emily Cady. And we are going today hear from 4 other congregants on the general question of how I use truth. That's the name of Emily Cady's second book, To Follow Up Lessons in Truth. What I hope that we would learn from today, listening to one another, is that there is no, my experience, there is no specific formula, that each of us being unique, even though there's only one of us, we're also uniquely distinct, separate, and our life journey is our own. And therefore, how we encounter and understand and use truth may be unique to ourselves. And yet, something that you experience may teach me something that I needed to learn today. Some fire that you may share with us may turn on a light inside of me that was dark. So we are very happy to share with one another our own experience in truth. Even Myrtle Fillmore and Charles Fillmore would agree that they did not have the answer. They were merely practitioners, as we are, practitioners of truth about the indwelling Christ presence. So as our panelists come up to the front, I'd like to ask all of us to set a bookend, to begin together. If you'd open your hymnals to page 78, hymn number 78, we're not going to sing, but we're going to recite. This is the prayer for faith that Hannah Moore Cohos wrote many, many years ago and was used by Myrtle Fillmore and the folks in Unity, published many years ago. So as I invite our panelists to come up to the front, let us together greet them with the prayer of faith. Together, God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of the day. I now am wise, I now am true, patient, kind, and loving too. All things I am, can do, and be through Christ the truth that is in me. God is my health. I can't be sick. God is my strength, unfailing, quick. God is my all. I know no fear, since God and love and truth are here.
That's the first prayer I learned when I was about 4 years old. Which has been 30 years.
Sure. Is this working?
No, it says it's off.
Okay, technical moment.
God we trust.
All others pay cash. Okay, so I want to introduce Tom, Connie, Ronnie, Veldon, Diane, and they each have just a few minutes because we don't have as much time as we would all like to have to share what they have learned. And this has not been rehearsed, so this is spontaneous. This is the way Spirit works. So if I can start with Diane, just to shake you up there a little bit. I know, that's why I never take Spirit for granted. You would feel free to share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, it looks a whole lot different from up here than it does from down there. I'd like to just share with you my story of how I used affirmative prayer. For all my reasoning years, I have been a Unity student, and I have known of the value of affirmative prayer. And I recently, since 2017, experienced two really serious illnesses: breast cancer and osteomyelitis. And what is osteomyelitis? I didn't know. It's a nasty bacteria that likes to eat your bones. Yeah. And so let me start with, this is kind of a two-part essay, if you will. In fall of 2017, I had the diagnosis of breast cancer. And I just couldn't believe that cancer and I were associated in any way whatsoever. Totally foreign to my way of thinking. But I did act on what I thought was the right course of treatment. And I did go through chemotherapy. It was a disaster. The chemo results sent me to the hospital over and above the cancer. So that quickly resolved into breast surgery, where it was both breasts, and I preferred and felt guided to say, I don't want a mastectomy, I want lumpectomies. And I had 4 of them. And the result was very good. It was quickly followed up with radiation treatment, which left my chest a flaming red color and peeling skin. That all healed. I haven't mentioned the affirmative prayer yet, but that was the context of the experience. When I first began treatment, I knew what I had to do, and that was to pray for healing. That I could do on my own very well. And yet, there was a silent army of people praying for healing for me. Not only family, not only friends, business associates who said they had their prayer groups at their churches. I didn't even know those people, and they were praying for me. I was just bowled over and pleased. I thought, boy, Lord, I'm coming to you with an army of well-wishers, and I honestly could visualize a golden current of healing energy from me to me, through the prayer groups, through God, and back through me. It was like a trilogy of healing energy. The result of that was I had a very good outcome. But that's only half my story. The osteomyelitis knocked me for a loop. I had no idea it was coming, and I had just had a successful remission from the cancer, and I was feeling like, whoopee, got that one whipped, thank you God. But quite unknown to me and unexpected, with no symptoms, late this January of this year, I got up out of bed one morning. I walked about 3 steps, and I collapsed on the floor in the most excruciating pain in my lower back that I could not even have imagined. I did not know pain was that intense or lasted that long. I was a basket case. Quickly got to the hospital. It took several days to diagnose as to what course of treatment to follow. It was pretty simple, but it was pretty potent and very direct. Antibiotics. And so for a total of 9 weeks, I lasted in the hospital with daily infusions of antibiotics. It too had a very good outcome. I mean, I'm here today. I'm telling you, it was a good outcome. What I found that I did in the course of this very mind-focusing pain was to use affirmative prayer that I designed, I thought of myself. And that was, I am healthy and strong in the healing, revitalizing presence of God. I can't tell you how many thousands of times I have said that, because I believe it to be the truth, and I keep telling my body that, and it believes it. And I thank God for the knowledge I have of Myrtle Fillmore's experience with overcoming severe tuberculosis. through affirmative prayer. It took her over 2 years to do it, but she lived a very healthy life free of tuberculosis after she used this phrase, I am a child of God. I do not inherit disease. That's it. Because I was seeking healing, I adopted her words too. And I've said that a few hundred times since then. Gee, I'm not even referencing my notes here.
Yeah, and your time is up. So.
And my time's up?
Yeah.
Okay, then let me say this. By the use of affirmative prayer, I had a very good outcome. And I learned 5 things, no, 6. And I'm going to share those with you. What I learned. My emergency is not God's emergency. God is, and he's always in a state of beingness. There is no timeline. Resolution is in progress. And outcome is determined largely by my consciousness, my relationship to God, and how it can express through me. Number 2, do not attempt, Diane, to tell God how I want the problem to manifest, because doing so makes me the obstacle to manifesting the outcome I desire. God has a much better answer than I could even imagine. Persevere in prayer through all appearances to the contrary. And when you're sick, there's a lot of appearances to the contrary. Your pain does not define you. In truth, it is an illusion. Myrtle Fillmore said, I'm a child of God. I do not inherit disease, and neither do I, and neither do we. What you need to do is state your desire, then step aside, leaving my ego and my human nature behind, and let go and let God do the work. That's kind of tough sometimes. Give thanks and show gratitude that your prayer is answered before it is. Notice all the blessings, big and small, and be mindful of the daily blessings. This opens the heart to receive your good. And lastly, pray for others. You are both blessed by doing so. Thanks.
Thanks, Diane.
Okay.
I don't know how I can follow that. My mother took me to the Unity Church and Unity Center in Dallas, Texas when I was about 7 years old. And I started going down and lived a couple of blocks from the bus depot or bus stop. I would go down to catch the bus at 7 years old and go downtown, go to Sunday school, come home. And the one thing I remembered particularly, and I still remember and I miss, and that was our love, our blessing, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have and all that I give. And I always feel at home when I hear that in Unity. I have to say that I've never quite used my Unity teachings or prayer perhaps in the way that my wife has, and but it's been a part of my life. I found that I would say affirmations, and then things wouldn't quite turn out the way that I had hoped they would. But a couple of things come to mind. Diane and I met at the Youth of Unity in Fresno, and really kind of connected with each other. As continued with that, and along with our efforts at Fresno State, where we're going to school. Midway through that, the United States Army came calling, and I had to go in on active duty. And one of the things that kind of hit me one day, I had just returned from hitchhiking to Richards-Gebauer Air Force Base to visit a friend of mine, and also take a side trip up to the Unity Village. And on the way back, as I'm hitchhiking, I'm just at the edge of the Ozarks. Through the Ozarks is a 3-hour trip at best in an automobile to get back to Camp Chaffee where I was stationed. And as I stood there, it was 10 minutes to 7, and I think for the first time I really started to pray about things because I could see myself being AWOL when this was over. So as I'm waiting, I started to think about, I don't know who's going to come along and solve my problem, and I don't know who I'm going to meet in the rest of my life or how they're going to play a part in my life. But I can look back on that now and say there have been quite a few that have played a role in that. Suddenly a vehicle drives up with a sergeant's uniform hanging in the back seat. He said, "Where are you going, soldier?" I said, "Camp Chaffee." "Get in." And he drove me up to the headquarters where I was. I got out at 3 minutes to 10. 3 more minutes, I was going to be AWOL. Walked in, and as I'm coming in, one of my buddies says, "Get out of here, I just signed you in." Now, if that isn't an answer to prayer, I'll put in with you. So, well, things went on. Diane and I returned to school at Fresno State. She and I got married August 1st, 1959. You do the math. August 1st, 2019. 60 years. Right after we got married, I went to work for KFRE TV in Fresno, and 6 months into our marriage, my job was, I was laid off at KFRE, and I can remember standing in our apartment, holding her in my arms and saying, "Don't worry, next year I'm going to make $10,000 a year." And in those days, that was a lot of money, and I thought, "Veldon, you must be out of your mind. How the hell are you going to do that?" Well, I went down to Visalia and landed a job as a DJ with a radio station and decided not to take it because there wasn't enough money in it to give me more money than unemployment was. I decided to go up to San Francisco to look for work, and when I announced that, my mother-in-law, who was also a very good Unity student, I think let the negative come in, and she was a little worried about whether that was really a good decision or not. But my father-in-law, who was quite spiritual, took me aside and said, "Veldon, let the instincts and the feelings in the pit of your stomach guide you as to the right decision. Do whatever you think, and don't let anybody else worry you about it." Well, I went up to San Francisco, came home with a job with Channel 7. Vacation relief would last till September. Come September, I went to the chief engineer, Dick Parks, and asked him if he could pass the word along, if he knew of anything in San Francisco, the other stations. Came down about 10 o'clock that morning. Said, "Veldon, call Al Keys over KPIX." I came home that night with a permanent job at Channel 5 in San Francisco at about $50 a week more than I was making at Channel 7, and it was a $10,000 a year salary. Well, the person that now did I do that to you?
I'm doing it.
Okay. I wound up there for a while, went on to other things, was working over at Channel 4 in San Francisco when Dick Parks showed up again, asked me if I'd be interested in his old job as chief at KGO. I said, "Well, I don't do radio, but I'll talk to them." Well, needless to say, I wound up as the chief engineer at KGO for 10 years. And Dick Parks was one of those people that had played an important part in my life. And so, with that, I'll pass the mic.
Thank you. So, Ronnie, before you begin, just in case, I'd like to ask the indulgence of everybody to, if you can stay, we might run a little bit over than we normally do. Please feel free to stay, and if you have to leave, please feel free to leave. I personally want to hear what everyone has to say, so. And I still ask you to try to keep it to 4 minutes.
Well, sit down so I can have my 4 minutes.
All right.
Okay. It was a Friday night, or Friday afternoon, and my husband hadn't gotten home from work yet. It was about this time of the year, and we were going to go to the hardtop races, my 5-year-old son or 4-year-old son and his sister. And I heard this weird noise. I was on the phone with my husband, and I looked out the window, and my little boy was flying down the street. A car had hit him. And he rolled, he hit, and he came out, and I stopped at the door, and I said, "Do I really want to go out there?" But I went out there, and there were some neighbors doing yard work, and everybody came over in the middle, and somebody had called, about 3 people had called the ambulance, and the ambulance got there. He had a big bash on his head. His arm was hanging down. He was unconscious, and they took him to the hospital. I said a prayer, kept praying for him. We went in, and they x-rayed him. and they said he's got a skull fracture from one ear to the other on the back of his head. And I said, that's not true. And he said, the technician said, well, there it is, right there on the film. And I said, that's not true. And he says, well, I'll take another one. And they took another one, and it was a faulty film. That's what they said. I know that wasn't true. I knew he had been healed. But it was just absolutely miraculous. And when Marty asked me to talk about the truth, the fact was is he had a fractured skull. But the truth was is he was healed. And that was the important thing of separating what is fact and what is the truth. And sometimes we're faced with things that we think are true, but look at it. Look at it really close. Is it the truth or is it a fact?
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you, Ronnie. It was beautiful. Well, I've had a lot of remarkable ways that I've used truth since I've been in Unity. But probably I'm going to tell you one today about when I was just a little girl before I ever came to Unity. I came to Unity around when I was 16. And when I was very small, and I think I started getting asthma, Layla, when I was about 6 years old. So I had it too, and it was pretty pronounced. But with some asthmatics, it can be brought on through emotions or exercise. It's kind of a weird thing. They don't really know what exactly causes it, I guess. And I was going to be in a dance recital. I was on point, and I was really excited. I was 8 years old, and it seemed that every time I got excited about something, not fearful, but just excited, it would throw me into an asthma attack. And I would be on my knees on the floor, coughing and coughing and coughing, and not being able to get a breath. And it was just so hard. And so my mother called the doctor, and the doctor goes, well, bring her in. And my mother didn't feel that my mother couldn't bring me in because she had no car. My father had the car. Remember the days when you either had no car or one car? So she asked me if I wanted her to call the elders of the LDS church where I was raised. That was Mormonism. And I said, oh, yes. So the man she called was an elder of the Melchizedek priesthood that many of the grown men hold. And he came with his son to administer to me. When I was small, I had to learn the Lord's Prayer and the 23rd Psalm. And so in the old days, in old Hebrew times, they would often anoint the heads of the sick with oil. And I remember, thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. So she called Bishop Birch, and she called his son too, and they came to me, and they administered to me and put olive oil on my head. And as they did that, I fell asleep. And I woke up, and the asthma was gone, and I never had another attack because I believed. I believed it. And so I don't have any handouts today. I don't have strong lungs, but I can function fine. I do have albuterol, but I never use it. I don't need it. So I may do the Buteyko method just for lung strengthening, but that's my story, and it helped me keep faith through my whole life.
Thanks, Connie.
Thank you. This reminds me of, and for those of you who don't know, I'm a lawyer. And you never want to get your closing argument right before noon because the jury at that point wants to get out of there. So this again is my prayer has been answered. I pulled up my blessing this morning because I really don't know what I was going to talk about. And this is what it says. I only allow divine ideas to guide my way. And what I think about it is that I am what I would consider a thinking type. In fact, I looked in the Metaphysical Bible, and Thomas is for the faculty of understanding, and I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. So what I like to do is I like to just turn any situation over and look for the guidance that comes from within me. I've had a life where it's been, in many ways, I can see it repeating up and down. I can see memories or circumstances that keep recycling themselves, and I believe that those keep coming back to me to be cleaned. Those are things that I have to face. And I have found, for me, the truth, the best way that I can get into contact with my inner being, my truth, is to just be present to whatever is coming up. And in some cases, those situations are unpleasant. And if something comes up that's unpleasant, there's a belief in me that maybe that I'm inadequate or that I don't measure up, then I just want to be present to that. And I know, and you heard from Layla a couple weeks ago, it's just as an example, when she was going through that at its worst, I had undying faith that she would come through that better than ever. And I would tell her that. I said, you know, when you get through this, you will be healthier and better than ever. And I didn't know how or why, what was going to come out of that. But I just had that inner knowing. And it's something that I can trust. There's an inner belief that I can trust. I know where it comes from. I can tap into it. But at times, I have thoughts that come up that get in the way. And when those are in the way, I just try to be present to those, and eventually those will dissipate. And developing a sense of being inside is really what I feel my life journey has been about.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody.